President Obama kicking off his last year in office with executive action on tougher gun control. Meanwhile, happening this week, the nation's largest gun show in Las Vegas. Joining me now to talk about this, former NRA President David Keene. David, thank you so much. Okay, let's talk about the moves that the president has made. Critics say they do nothing but hurt those that want to comply with the law. Would you agree?
That's exactly the problem. You know, in the past, we've looked at these laws, these restrictions, these regulations, and they don't do very much, if anything, about what the president describes as gun violence, which would be mass killings and gun crime and suicide. What they do is make it more difficult for honest citizens who've never been in any kind of problem, who aren't a threat to anyone, to exercise a fundamental right to keep and bear arms in this country. So it's as if the president is more interested in symbolism and in harassing people just because they own and use firearms than he is in solving these real problems.
Are you ever going to be able to enact any type of legislation that would keep guns out of the bad guys' hands?
Well, we know how to deal with gun crime. We've done it in the past as a country. You punish people who illegally use firearms to commit crimes. That's worked in those jurisdictions where it's done. It has great impact. You know, if you rob a 7-Eleven with a gun, you're committing two crimes. One is the robbery, which is usually a state crime, and second is a federal crime, which is the use of a firearm to commit a felony. That crime is prosecutable by the federal government and carries a minimum sentence of at least 5 years. Now, in the preliminary list of what the president thought he was going to announce, it was suggested that he was going to urge U.S. attorneys to prosecute those crimes. That did not make the list of things the president did. He ignored that. Instead, what he did was take some steps that will make it more difficult for people who've never done anything wrong and aren't a threat to anybody to exercise their rights.
David, you know, a lot was said about closing the so-called loophole with the gun show requirement on background checks. Was that a loophole? Did that need to be closed?
No, it's not a loophole. You know, and this is one of the problems with what the president suggested. He wants to extend background checks to more and more people, and to do that, he's redefined dealing. It is anybody who is in the business and deals in guns as a business activity is required to have a federal firearms license and do background checks of anybody that purchases from them. In 1968, when the original Gun Control Act of '68 was passed, there was no definition of dealing, and as a result, there were tremendous abuses as federal agents went after and entrapped collectors and hobbyists and people that were selling one or two guns. Then it went to the current definition. And now the president, instead of doing as was also suggested, like making it requiring a license if you deal in 20 guns or 40 guns or 30 guns in a year, has said, no, we're going to look at each case, and we want you to know that if you sell one gun under some circumstances, that makes you a dealer. What that does is throw the fear of prosecution into the heads of millions of people who don't intend to do anything wrong, have never done anything wrong, and are certainly not criminals.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. David Keene, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.